All right, we're live on October the 11th, 2025, IPS morning deprogram. So I thought it was worth getting started a little bit early today. We will be going in depth later, but there's a very particular video that I think needs to be discussed because it raises some very important questions. Not for us, because we've already addressed these questions, but in our conversation about the CK event, I've made it a point to talk about the relevant content in the media ecosystem, the predictive stuff, the concurrent stuff, but I said we can't limit it to only the movies and the books and the video games, but also the podcasts. Case in point, Joe Rogan show. He's talking to Charlie Sheen, because Charlie Sheen released a Netflix thing on September 10th. Basically, hey, I'm still alive. And that's actually what it said on People magazine. On September 11th, I see Charlie Sheen's face and it's like, still alive. Charlie's not dead. Or he says I could have been dead. Anyway, the point of it is, they were talking about the JFK assassination. And during this conversation, Charlie described how he was sniped by somebody from a balcony who flicked something at him and hit him on the right side of his head. And Joe Rogan said, great shot. And then they're like, oh, by the way, Charlie Kirk just got shot. So I pointed out that the podcasts, the big heavily promoted podcasts, big celebrity names, they're also propaganda conduits. And one of the ways I've described this lately has been, we're looking at product placement for PSYOPs. When you're talking about predictive programming, concurrent programming, or these strange, seemingly just random mentions of things that are highly relevant, no, that's product placement. Think Edward Bernays crossed with Sigmund Freud. That's how you get Netflix. Remember, the co-founder of Netflix, first CEO, he was the guy who is the blood relative of Edward Bernays and Sigmund Freud. Not that that means anything, but it kind of does. You know, if your uncle is Edward Bernays, and this is the guy who wrote propaganda about how essentially we have an invisible government of people we'll never know about, who know how to influence humanity en masse. And that book could not be written today in that way, because it was just too real. But here's the thing, the podcast thing. So we've already talked about all the crazy stuff to outside people who've never heard of this before, but how, yes, there is entrainment between entertainment and media. We recognize this pattern going back at least to the Kennedy assassination, although there were intimations of it sooner, especially if you look at the Lincoln-Kennedy stuff and the overlaps, the 100 years apart between all these significant events. So we already know what we're looking at. So when I found out that the same actress who's next to Charlie Kirkland in Snake Eyes, when he gets shot in the neck, plays Vice President Kirk in a 2025 movie, where she gets shot in the neck. This is, again, the stuff that we always talk about. But here's the interesting stuff to me is the podcast stuff, or the stuff that seems suddenly just like spontaneous, random, but just connects. So the final YouTube short that Charlie Kirk uploaded was called Enough is Enough. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, enough is enough with your predictive programming games. Like, we know this is product placement. We're not trying to mystify it. We're no longer confused. I was never fully confused about it. I just recognized it as a fact. And so that's one of the questions it raises here. The people who don't, quote, believe in predictive, concurrent programming, product placement for PSYOPs, those who don't believe in it, this next thing I'm going to bring up is going to raise some questions, as it all should, because it's so easy to dismiss these things. Like, you'll notice they try to dismiss Snake Eyes while simultaneously hyping it up. Like, well, they got the date wrong. It was September 19th, not the 10th. Well, it was ambiguous, and 90% of the people probably got it wrong the first time they looked at it. But even that doesn't subtract from the totality of the movie and all of its seemingly prophetic clues about 9/10. Then we get the Erica Kirk stuff, Emerson Drive video, She's My Kind of Crazy, where at 2 minutes and 33 seconds, she flies by the number 910. And in the comments, she thanks Tyler for the video shoot. We had a great shoot, Tyler. So Tyler 910 on a comment posted on 910, exactly 13 years prior. It was on September the 12th. I'm sorry, September 10th, 2012. So there you have a Tyler reference, a 910 reference to a shoot. Funnily enough, the actress who corresponds to Erica Kirk in Heads of State and in Snake Eyes, she made a comment on July 4th about a great shoot that Synchromorpheus had noted. I mean, fascinating connections here. But one of the connections that we've noted quite frequently is that you have these actors and actresses who play what I call predictive programming proxies. Like the guy who... Here we go. There's your wrench, Breakaway 34. So the actor Giancarlo Esposito, who plays the Chicken Man in Breaking Bad, well, he happens to play in at least 3 movies this opponent to the Trump character who survives an assassination attempt. And this is a repeated theme where the same actors play the same corresponding roles, and he would correspond to the real-life Obama. Just like Biff Tannen, Trump, or Senator McLaughlin, Trump, or Charlie Coker in Man and Fool, Trump, or the Highlander, Trump, or the guy Marshall is his name from Mickey 17, definitely based on Trump. And all of these movies contain the same elements, even if it's interpreted through a different director's lens. So another point here is that you can call out by names the directors who are involved with product placement for government psyops. So once you strip away the mind-blown reaction, like my mind is blown because of this, like I don't know why. My mind has not been blown by any of this stuff for a long time, since at least 2022, when I figured out that the concurrent stuff was definitely solid evidence of systemic fakery, where they're using every propaganda conduit possible for product placement purposes, planting suggestions, for sowing the seeds, for getting people ready to react to the fake event that's going to happen soon. These fake events are scheduled long in advance, and there's every indication that the Charlie Kirk event is this generation's JFK, and it was scheduled at least 30 years ago. And that the actor who fit that role, the guy that we know as Charlie Kirk, he wasn't necessarily going to be that until he signed up for it at like 18 or whatever. There's no reason to think otherwise. So there's no need for inventing time machines to explain it like Nick Fuentes did mockingly, or reptilians. Like, no, there's nothing mystical about it. No simulation stuff. We're looking at sophisticated product placement and propaganda in plain sight. Just propaganda. But now, here's the thing that just came up. There's a podcast called Thought Crime with Jack Posobiec, and you should be familiar with him by now. He's in that same circle of people. Yeah, he's the one who said, this is the turning point when Christian America saved the West. That guy who started Pizzagate, who hyped up all the satanic trans shooters as the new threat because the right wasn't buying into the neo-Nazi bowl cut shooters. So this guy's huge in psyops. So Jack Posobiec, Charlie Kirk, and a few others have this show called Thought Crimes. Well, Thought Crimes episode number 33 has this particular, and I put it in the newsletter. So if you're not subscribed, go to the Substack, go to ips.monster and subscribe so you can get the link. You have to watch this video. So it's an episode of Thought Crimes number 33 where they're talking about executions. This is the one where you can hear Charlie Kirk say in a quote that's been used kind of ironically, where he says that public executions should be televised and they should be quick. Like he was basically saying he advocates for live executions. And after Charlie Kirk says this, another guy in the show, whose name is Tyler, says, did you know the last public execution was in France by guillotine on September 10th, 1977? And they all cheer this fact. So again, a guy named Tyler says to Charlie Kirk, who says that he advocates for live televised execution, says, yeah, some guy got his head chopped off on September 10th. 1977. So again, you got the neck wound, the guillotine to the neck, bullet to the neck. Again, that is episode 33 of Thought Crimes. And you know how 33 codes fit into all these things. Like there were 33 hours that it took to catch the shooter. Just across the board, this thing is hoax coded. And the fact that a guy named Tyler responds to Charlie, who says, yeah, I like public executions. And he's like, by the way, the last one was on September 10th, 1977. Again, to the neck. Thank you, Breakaway 34, for commenting and taking up the blue wrench. Let me go through some of your comments. So the reason I thought this particular instance of predictive programming is worth bringing up is because, kind of like the Erica Kirk one, this is the participants who are involved in the PSYOP, directly involved in their own predictive programming. So here you have Charlie Kirk, just to put it in context, Charlie Kirk talking to a guy named Tyler about an assassination, or rather an execution on September 10th. And then similarly, you have Erica Kirk communicating to the director of a video that references 9/10 on September the 10th, and his name is Tyler, and she says, we had a great shoot, Tyler. Repeated themes. I mean, this is so consistent. And one of the things that the IPS think tank has been able to accomplish has been empirical research on a consistent enough basis to eliminate the misconception that these are anomalies. That's where the simulation people got it wrong, because they see these things as once in a while, like the Luigi thing or white noise and the train derailment. They see these things as random, possibly coincidence, but maybe a little more because it's kind of spooky or eerie, as the media says. But when you notice it's an everyday thing, it ceases to be spooky. It's no spookier than a commercial. I mean, this is just advertising for future PSYOPs. We've got a few new members here, so you can join our Discord if you go to the posts section. I posted a link. LBB Store, Quays, Haley Harmon, Truth Hurts 21, and of course Breakaway 34. You're all welcome to join in. So now here's to get back to the question this raises. For those who, quote, don't believe in it, at this point, they're coming up short. They haven't done their due diligence. So how you confront this predictive concurrent programming in the media content phenomenon, however you approach this, is very significant, because it will determine, I think, quite a lot, actually, from our perspective. It determines quite a lot about every other opinion you're going to have regarding the media. It's kind of invalidating, to be honest. Like, you can't just opt out of certain things. Like, I don't believe in lies. Okay, so I guess everybody's telling you the truth. See how that works for you. That's naive. I don't believe in psyops. I don't believe in influence operations. What do you mean? These things are admitted. That's what media is. You think the news is there to inform you? It's always been there to conform you to a prefabricated worldview, which includes a prefabricated history, with significant historic events faked on the regular, on the world stage for our consumption, so it can be absorbed into this amalgamation that we call history. This is standard operating procedure. It's always been this way. And we have nothing but research that bears this out. So if you avoid it, what are you? I mean, a reality denialist at this point. If you acknowledge it, but don't acknowledge that this implies long-term scripted history, then you live in a world of wild coincidences, which you have to explain. The burden of proof is on the believers, on the media advocates with stories like this. So there's no excuse for saying, well, I don't know if it's real or fake, other than, oh, you're confused. Okay, well, why advertise that? If I was just baffled and confused by the news and I didn't know what was real or fake, I wouldn't walk around advertising it. I'd seek help. Like, I'm not confused. I have clarity about this. There are so many elements of this. I mean, I ought to just get my whiteboards out, do a mind map to show the relationship between the event and the peripheral content with direct connections to it, And then you connect the directors and the various celebrities involved, the influencers involved, the podcasts involved, and you can arrive at a pretty coherent picture here. And that's why I coined the term metascript for this, because we were noting in 2020 how many of the events we were experiencing seemed to be mirroring things uncannily from the late 60s. And I'm like, wait a minute here. I've heard that that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. I think Mark Twain. But we certainly saw that happening, almost like they were borrowing. And I'm like, wait a minute here. So I understand that there's news manipulation, that events are faked. But this is implying on a whole new level that entire segments of time are manipulated, like turning points in history, which is what we just saw with the Charlie Kirk thing. And it is a big turning point for a couple of reasons, in two ways. One, it did birth this new movement. By the way, the white shirt with freedom on it, I think that's a Braveheart call out, which is sort of a side topic, but where we look at these events and, what are they really communicating? And Braveheart, if you remember, Mel Gibson dies a Christ-like, crucifixion-like death where they rip his guts out. The last word is freedom. But my point is, I started looking at this thing as, okay, not just the individual events manipulating things for the next voting cycle or some particular political agenda, but no, they're actually doing a lot more than that. They're creating these significant historic events that everybody agrees happened. So think about like the moon landing, the significance of that. Whether you watch the news or not, the worldview gets an update and you're part of it. So they update the worldview. We have these periodic updates. Like, oh, now we live in a world with terrorists, neo-Nazis who listen to KMFDM and shoot up schools. Well, now we live in a world where Reddit radicalized gender ideologues are shooting Christian children in schools. And you see they add these elements all the time. Space junk's a new thing. I think they're saying that now every day a CubeSat's going to fall. Which follows right after that Nashville 911 trailer about space junk falling. Yeah, it's a space junk theme. Imagine that. Fire Department 113 in a show called 911 dealing with the space junk threat. So the world stage is the consensus version of events. Whether or not you pay attention to the news or media, you can completely abstain from all content and all broadcast media. You're still in that worldview because your frame of reference is shaped through the process of education. We are educated specifically for a worldview, and all of our educational material is part of that closed system. Dark Ghost Win, I had a comment here. I feel like simulation theory is the result of constantly watching movies. Yeah, I think there's a lot of content out. Like, to me, that's just gaslighting. Nothing you know is real. All your senses are false. That's meant to make you dependent on whoever's telling you that you don't know what the hell's up. Oh, I don't know what's going on. I'm so confused. So then you go to the experts. It's just pure gaslighting. And it's been deliberately inserted into the red pill community and group so that when they start noticing stuff, they don't become cognizant of what it really means. They would rather here's the problem. People think, oh, news is objectively real. So when I see glitches on the news, it means that reality is glitching and the news is reporting on the glitchy reality. That's what people conclude. Now, if you don't take for granted that the news is real, then a glitch in the news is not a glitch in reality. But that's why I describe people as living with their noses pressed up against a vast screen, ignoring the peripheral information and taking the screen literally. And that's their frame of reference. So if it's on the screen, it's real. And with that as a frame of reference, then any glitchiness there is going to translate to you as the world's got some kind of corresponding glitch. And not just glitches, but also, oh, there's terrorists on the screen. Now there's terrorists in my neighborhood. The screen has become a sensory apparatus to the extent that you've merged with it. And the truthers are the ones who are intuitive enough to recognize they're being lied to. But what do? They go through the screen. They go deeper into the matrix. They go into a subset that I call Trutherville. And Trutherville is built upon the same lies that the mainstream version of the world stage is on, the Normieville. But the Trutherville just adds on a bunch of complicated, paranoia-driven fantasies, like 5G towers are gonna sterilize you, or airplanes are blocking the sun, and so on. But the skeptical approach isn't to go deeper into their lies, and add on to it with, basically filling in the gaps with stuff that you're actually led to believe. I mean, don't think that Candace Owens is doing research. No, that's a well-worn rabbit trail. It's paved, in fact. And all these truthers are walking down it thinking, oh, we've discovered something new. No, you're on a path that was paved in the 60s, and you're following breadcrumbs. The skeptical approach isn't to go deeper into the system of lies, but it's to step away from the screen. The position is, we're socially distanced from the monolith. We're looking at everybody else with their faces pressed up against it. So we're recognizing, okay, there's the real world. Then there's that version of world that they're plugged into. So now we know what they think and how they see the world, because we're studying what's being broadcast into their minds and accepting them quickly. So we know where they're coming from, and we know what it says, but then we know that this is not the same thing as reality. So I informed non-believers. We know what they believe, but we don't believe it because of these other reasons. So what separates this, what I call off-world stage perspective, is that in our analysis of media, we take into account long-term systemic fakery and psychological operations, influence operations, all this stuff. And what it implies, and this is why the conspiracy theorists will never touch this. This is why the big channels will never touch this. This implies an integration between government, religion, media, entertainment that the public wouldn't be willing or even capable of confronting, because it suggests it's a global operation. To use one of their favorite words. Because it is. It's a universal religion. We already have the one world religion that the conspiracy theorists used to warn was going to come. Like, oh, there's this new age religion and everyone's going to buy it. Yeah, you already did. You were born into it. We're like generations deep into this thing. MSO Win says, of course history is created. I always find strange that people still today in the 21st century believe all history. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay, so the history thing is fascinating, because I always had when I was growing up, I thought history is objective. I used to love studying history because I thought this is a objective account of what happened. And there's a lot of value in it. I mean, one of my favorite books, Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, is basically using a lot of historic anecdotes to make points. And they're all very intriguing and fascinating. But then you can see that even recent history is fought over. Like, oh, the Democrats say that the Republicans are the racists, and the Republicans say, no, it's the Democrats are the slave owners. And it goes back and forth. And now you have this competing paradigms between like 1619 and 1776. When did America begin? What really defines it? So it seems to be highly contentious. And Napoleon Bonaparte's credited with saying, history is lies agreed upon. Well, I've updated that. Media is lies agreed upon. And if you look at what media is, it's a snapshot in history. Every single day is another page in the history book. And if you look at the cumulative effect, you have to walk away recognizing that, and it's provable, we can demonstrate this, our history is bent. As in, you have the truth, and then you have this divergence. And the divergences build atop one another. So these fake events do not exist in a vacuum. These things are all part of a continuous sequence of pre-planned events that are being inserted onto our timeline and keep us in this divergence. And another key point is that everything that you know to be fake is going to be in the history books as real. The mainstream point of view. So there's points of view that we have to consider. The world stage point of view presumes that history, as the consensus accepts it, is what really happened. They don't account for the fakery. That's what I mean by bent. So their whole point of view is bent. You can be a very honest person and become a news reporter because you want to report the news, and unless you're just reporting on the sky being blue, everything that you're saying is going to be bent because your entire perspective, the perspective of the agency that you represent, rests upon that edifice of fakery. But you have to take kind of a wide view to understand the full implications of it, because it might seem like, oh, what's the big deal here? Well, you have to recognize that we live with different points of view, and these points of view determine the outcomes. Like when you talk to ChatGPT, everything it gives you is going to be mainstream. It's not going to give you the conspiracy theory version of things. It's not even going to acknowledge that some things could be fake. The AI have all been guardrailed to, I think, to prevent it from becoming objective. It has to exist in the subjective universe of mainstream mediation. Soul 101 says, at least we've got the internet to debunk the myriad of nonsense. Yeah, I would say that it would not have been possible without social media and the rapid sharing of videos and clips. But even that, if you look, Trutherville is not closer to the truth than normies. The big lie is that alternative media is actually an alternative source. No, it's an alternative take, but it's the same content. It's a perfect Hegelian dialectic they set up here with the mainstream and the alternative. No. And I've expanded my definition of controlled opposition. Controlled opposition is no longer simply a few individuals who've been platformed to mislead the sheep. No, controlled opposition is really the entire alternative media demographic, including its consumers. So if you're a red pill propaganda mule, you are controlled opposition. If you create content from that perspective, you're controlled op. It's no different than saying somebody creating content from a mainstream perspective is opposition to the alternative media. We're talking about one side is diametrically opposed to the other by design. Anybody in that system is essentially part of the problem. MSO Win says, I recommend everyone try to use LLM once. Oh, yes. Yeah, I definitely, he says here, so you can see how AI is used and can be used, as well as limitations depending on what you teach the program. Yeah, so what they have done is they have definitely maintained, like with Wikipedia. You don't go to Wikipedia for, I mean, there's a lot of use for it. Obviously, it's a source for sources. It is very informative. You can learn a lot. But you're not going to go there if you want to find out about that the media is built upon fakery, mass manipulation through illusion and psyops. They're not going to tell you that. It's guardrailed. Well, AI is the same thing. It's the same exact thing. I got the pro version of Perplexity now, and I use it for a ton of things all the time. It's even good with editing, creative works. It's fantastic. But I understand its limitations. Just like I don't go talk to normies in my life thinking they're going to understand the significance of the Charlie Kirk assassination. No, they don't even know what happened. Or if they do, it's just it's in one ear, in one eye, out the other. Like they don't even cogitate this stuff. It just gets processed mindlessly. And it's not a criticism. I mean, I'm glad most people are oblivious to the programming. The ones who take it seriously get a little agitated. They become woke, or they become red pill. They become an agitated extreme version of whatever side they're on. But AI is in the box. And if your perspective is face against the screen, you're in the box. If you're a conspiracy theorist, you're deeper in the box. That's kind of my point here. So that the point of view that we're espousing here is not in that box. And you cannot claim to be off the grid, even if you live in a bunker and you have your own source of power and food, you grow your own food. You're not off the grid if you're still mentally on the world stage. I can name some LARPsteaders, people who shop at Whole Foods, but they pretend like they live on a farm and take care of themselves by living off the land. These LARPsteaders, like, look at me, I'm so off the grid. Well, no, you're on TikTok and you're basically still like on the grid in that sense, but you're also not off the grid if the reason you left the grid is because you're afraid of a bunch of stuff that doesn't exist. If you live in a bunker because you're afraid of whatever threats that the world stage has created for you, you're basically in a solitary FEMA camp and you're your own prison warden. I'm off the grid. Off-world stage isn't something that you can have passively either, because the mainstream and alternative media both have consumers who are passively accepting their side. By passive, I mean they unquestioningly believe or unquestioningly disbelieve the other side. The point of it is there's no questioning. There's no pause, which is why people react en masse. If they didn't have people automatically believing, the reactions wouldn't be synchronized enough for this to work. So they synchronize reactions. But if you pause before you believe something, you cannot be synchronized with the masses. So when they trigger a stampede, you're not running with everybody else. That's why I wasn't crying for Charlie Kirk and sending money to Erica. It's like, I think they just sold their $8 million mansion, but let me cut into my paycheck to send this former beauty pageant queen some cash because her husband just died. I mean, you see how insane that is. I always spell psyops with a $, by the way. It's $YOP. The psyop entertainment complex sure knows how to capitalize on everything. Eric Johnson says, I just came into this, so I'm not sure what's been said, but I'm of the belief that the whole homesteading thing has been a psyop to waste people's energy on low return activities. Yeah, absolutely. So it has a couple of functions. The homesteading thing, in my opinion, this has been it's culture war, but it's to create this distinction between the mainstream progressive government dependency, public schools, and it says, no, you can get out of the cities, get away, quarantining. So the left is all about quarantining from the right when it comes down to how the schism is between pro-vax, anti-vax. The left was very pro-quarantine, trust the experts. And quarantine from the right, because they're the disinformation spreaders who spread the disease. And this is actually a follow-up of safe spaces on college campuses that were specifically meant to protect the left from right-wing ideas. So there's always been this desire for the left to quarantine from the right. Well, the LARP steading is how they get the right to quarantine from the left. Get out of the cities, go rural, get your kids out of the schools, and then break away from all dependencies and grow your own food. It's this idealism. And look at the people. I mean, I'm not knocking it. I think whatever people want to do, you want to go forage or hunt or whatever, it's not my criticism. I'm just pointing out that they've introduced it as an ideal to go along with trad wives. And all this anti-Hollywood stuff is like pushing back against cultural influences that broke the traditional family. So it's like this return to, MAGA, Make America Great Again, return to this idealized past. And that's juxtaposed against the progressive future with AI and the Great Reset. So you have the Great Reset and the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening is, the world's gone the wrong way. Let's go back. Pre-feminism, pre-civil rights, pretty much, I guess, the Great Society. But the idea here is that, they wanted to create for the right, the trad right. And look, this figures into everything, even aliens. This is why the right wing has been conditioned to see aliens as demons. Look at Tucker Carlson. My Pentagon friend says the aliens are demons and they work with the Democrats. And one of them scratched me in my bed. And that's a common attitude and opinion on the right, on the far trad right. They have the same opinion towards AI. But the left loves the aliens. They love this. I'm talking about this embrace of the idea. Like, it's just become, it used to be a tinfoil hat thing. But now if you don't believe in aliens, you're not scientific. But aliens are essentially aliens. Aliens are essentially angels. They're angels for those atheistic types or progressive types who don't believe in traditional versions. So you have these updated versions of the traditional worldview and its various attributes and facets that are updated with this, It's basically syncreticism, mixing science fiction with more traditional beliefs. Soul 101 says, isn't detachment a privilege? People's identity is strictly intertwined with politics on how to better their livelihood. Well, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, I think that this whole system is so inherently dishonest that even if the politicians have the best of intentions, they're part of a system that's built on lies, and they become liars. Like the world stage makes liars out of everybody. If you're a world stager, if you have the same point of view as ChatGPT or Wikipedia, you're a liar. Now, you may not want to admit that. And, I have this manuscript I've been working on here and there about lies, because I think we need to talk about lies. Witting lies, unwitting lies, lies we're complicit with, lies we're unaware of, and the different types of liars. Conscious liars, unconscious liars. And at what point are we responsible for not being liars? Because a lot of people are unwittingly going with the flow. But I think it's important to talk about, because this whole thing is built on lies, and even if you think this politician is 100% honest, they might be so insulated that they don't know that the agendas they're advancing are also lies. We had this kind of split in our Discord server after the Vegas event, because at the Vegas event, 10/1/2017, we were at the point where all of our live stream channels that we were friends with and our own channels, we were always like, it's fake, and we're breaking it down live. And there were so many people watching our live breakdowns, and we're going to the mainstream chat rooms and saying, hey, it's fake, don't listen to this stuff. That's when YouTube started clamping down on people describing things as fake. And after that, our Discord server had this huge rift because QAnon came out. And Q said, trust the plan, trust Donald Trump. And they were like, well, if it was fake, Trump would have told us. Or maybe Trump knows it's fake, but they can't tell the public yet because the truth is too big to bear. So we have to, keep it close to our chests. So the Q people were very delusional about Trump, as like, oh, at some point, he's going to show that the media has been making all this stuff up. Well, that didn't happen. And so what did they do? Instead of abandoning Trump and politics, as I advocated, I'm like, if you follow politics, you're following dupes or agents. Take your pick. Instead, they decided to go with, well, you're just being negative. We're going to follow Q, and we're going to save the world. We're going to save the children. Don't you want to save the children? That was one of their big things. Don't you want to save the children? Like in Seinfeld when they're on the AIDS walk and they're telling Kramer, don't you want to wear an AIDS ribbon? It's like, no, I don't want to wear an AIDS ribbon. Aren't you against AIDS? It's like, yeah, I'm against AIDS, but I don't want to wear the ribbon. It was just kind of this fight they had over that. It was like, don't you want to save the children? Yeah, I do, but I don't want to follow this cult that worships JFK and thinks the Democrat Party is the deep state that drinks blood. So you can't, like, a lot of beliefs are not neutral. No conspiracy theory is neutral. And like, if you buy into a position, there's a cluster of things that become attached to it. So recently I've been advocating that you take the position of non-vaxxer if you're an anti-vaxxer, because the anti-vax movement is totally embedded, enmeshed, ensconced within a cluster of beliefs that do not pass the test in terms of skepticism. They're built upon the world stage. So if you want to break out of the world stage, you can't be in an anti-position on any issue. Non is fine. I'm like, if you don't drink, you don't smoke, are you an anti-drinker? Are you an anti-smoker? Well, no, you're probably a non-smoker, non-drinker. So you have pro, anti, and I'm offering the third one, which is the non. So if you just got here, episode 33 of Thought Crime, Charlie Kirk is talking about how he thinks execution should be public, televised. And after he says this, the guy next to him named Tyler says, the last execution was September 10th, 1977 by guillotine. Is in France. So again, the guillotine, wound to the neck, public execution, public assassination, a guy named Tyler. And that was episode 33. So that's in the newsletter. I bring this up because a lot of people are still wrestling with the existence of predictive programming and concurrent programming and what that means. Because this is a paradigm shift. And a lot of people have been resisting this paradigm shift. But now you can't. Because now we've shown that the main participants in this PSYOP have inserted their own examples of predictive content. Soul 101 says, it's just my perspective because at the same time, I don't blame many for siding with either side for the human rights at all, but of course we have the lying politicians. Yeah, I don't fault people. Like, I just go to where they are. If they're mainstream, I can relate to their opinions. I have empathy. But I know that they don't realize how lied to they are. They're like, oh, you're basically you're in a petri dish. You're Truman in a Truman Show. You're in a big alien ant farm. You're being studied. You're being manipulated. So their opinions don't matter to me. I don't get triggered. But I mean, I understand, like, there's the real world, real concerns, and then there's what the media hypes. I'm more interested in the real world. Not these manufactured martyrs. DeWitt Celeste says, I've read some comments on YouTube where people know his death was fake, but they think he's a white hat helping Trump behind the scenes. Yeah, that's what I saw with a lot of the people that were in our server who went and took the Q pill. They hit the Q pipe. They were like, yeah, of course it's all fake, but all these death fakers are wearing white hats, and they're all fighting the war against the black hats, and they're rescuing children in the tunnels. And they have a list of celebrities who are actually doing work behind the scenes. And they have some celebrities they believe are working for them right now, like Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson. They have their martyrs. They actually, the Q people are so, they believe their own fan fiction, which is technically like almost schizophrenic, where they have no way to process real from fake. It's sad, actually. It's like, put down the Q pipes. Q's not coming to save you. I saw some guy saying, I'm pretty sure that JFK Jr. is going to show up at the Charlie Kirk Memorial and Charlie Kirk will be alive. It's kind of a cool fantasy, but I think a lot of people will be mad about it. 5D chess crap. Watching Mama says, love that non-vaxxer. Yeah, look, non-vaxxer spares you from being... Okay, look, someone said to me, I think IPS is a shill because he doesn't believe in anti-vax. I'm like, well, let me list you 5 people who are decidedly anti-vax. Stu Peters, for one, Health Ranger Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer, and David Icke. Okay, well, I'm not on their side. Fine. Like, I'm cool with that. Because I'm not part of that clique. I'm not part of that closed informational system. And I'm not going to, by default, join forces with control and opposition by taking that stance. You don't have to take that stance. You can be a non. I'm only interested in the facts. I don't care about gematria or religious overtones in people's interpretations, but the facts are the facts. The objective, direct hits we can point to. Not the secondary stuff, not tertiary, just the straight direct. Oh, look, episode 33, thought crimes. Charlie Kirk brings up televised assassinations, and his buddy Tyler says to him, the last televised assassination or execution was on 9/10. And MSO says, so not anti or pro, just be. I have an ebook on this, and it's in the back of the new book, Handbook for the Recently Deprogrammed. It's called Anti-Anti. I'm like, yeah, I'm anti-pro, and I'm also anti-anti. And one of the things that the antis will do is like, oh, you're not anti what I'm anti? Then you're pro-it. Like, if you don't wear the AIDS ribbon, you're pro-AIDS. If you don't want to save the children, then you're pro-adrenochrome extraction, satanic ritual sacrifice, child trafficking. Like, no, actually, I'm not. I'm not participating. I'm a conscientious objector. I'm not going into your bifurcated Psywar. You can leave me out of your political horseshoe. I'm anti-anti. Whatever the thing you're against, I'm also against being against it. because I know that's the default position that they manipulate you into. It's like simple reverse psychology. It's red herrings. They use all kinds of bait. They lure people into these positions, and people want to die for these positions. There are people who want to die for chemtrails. They want to die for chemtrail belief. They'll fight